everyone, welcome to Zeta Ias. My name is Srishti Saxena and I will be analyzing the socio-political issue of regionalism, which is in news of late. Now, before we begin, why is regionalism in news? It is because of these two reasons. First, the growing incidence of the local people forcing the outsiders to speak their language, as we have witnessed in Maharashtra, in Mumbai and Bengaluru specifically. The second is again related to Maharashtra, the Maharashtra government's decision to scrap the three-language formula. Before we begin and we dwell on these two reasons, let's first discuss what regionalism is and what regionalism is not. What is regionalism and what is not regionalism? Let's talk about what is not regionalism first. Loyalty to a locality, affinity to a language, culture, region, defending the federal laws like demanding statehood or autonomous region in the country itself. Last, aspiration to develop a particular region or the region that you all belong. Okay. See, these four reasons are nothing but natural feeling. The feeling that comes from a sense of belongingness. As human beings, we all need to belong to a particular place, right? We wish to belong to a place. We have a home. We belong to a city. We belong to a village. So to see your city develop or to see your village develop feels like a personal growth, if nothing else. Okay. So these cannot qualify it as an issue of regionalism. These are simple natural desires, you can say plainly. But if these are not regionalism, this is not regionalism, then what is regionalism? Now, if you have a natural desire to see your state build, to see your city develop, okay, it's a natural desire. But what if these interests become radical in nature? What if the interests of your state or this interest of the people of that state go against the interest of the nation as a whole? This is what regionalism is. When interest of a state, of a particular state, is asserted against the interest of the nation, a state or a particular region, it translates into conflict. There's conflict building because of divergence of interest. Now, this conflict may result in violence, it may result in protest, it may result in the erosion of the federal principles or federal relations between the center and the state, and it can also give rise to terrorism, as we have witnessed in case of the demand for Khalistan. Okay, so this is what we think when we talk about regionalism. This is what we mean, that when conflict of a state is asserted against the nation, it becomes an issue of regionalism. Okay. How did regionalism grow in India? Was regionalism always there? As I mentioned before, the sense of belongingness was always there. It is an innate human desire. It can't be defied at any point of time. In ancient history textbooks, you might have read that we were ruled by various dynasties. We were ruled by Guptas in the north. We were ruled by Cheras and Cholas in the south. The Palas in the east. And Parmars in the west. And also we had different powers come, the Chauhans and everybody, other dynasties come here in the center. This is not ancient, but still. We were ruled by so many dynasties, and yet regionalism was never discussed. It was never mentioned as an issue. Why? Don't these people at this point of time point in time had a regional affinity, or they didn't feel that they belonged to a place? They did. But regionalism at this point had not gained political power. It was not politicized. It was only after the arrival of the British that politicization of regionalism happened. Now, how did this happen? How did regionalism become an issue of political debate? This happened because the British government, when they took over India's administration after 1857 revolt, they decided, as a part of their administrative decision, to divide the country into presidencies. So they had Bengal presidency, Bombay presidency, and Madras presidency. Now, when you divide a particular region among the people, so people develop a sense of patronage for their own region. These people of Bengal have an affinity for their own region, people of Bombay have an affinity for their own region, people of Madras have their affinity for their own region. Now, with acts of 1909, 1919, and the Popular Government of India Act of 1935, the British government further politicized the issue of regionalism. How? They made Bengal presidency supreme. They gave all the powers to Bengal, and these two presidencies were made subordinate to Bengal, which meant that Bengal became the ultimate decision maker, while these two presidencies had to follow Bengal. Divisive. People had their own reasons. People began thinking that we are inferior. The people of Bengal felt that they are superior. They belong to the Bengal presidency. This fueled the issue of regionalism. This is how the seed of regionalism was germinated by British. This issue was this was further aggravated or exaggerated by the formation of the Justice Party and then the self-respect movement. Now you may ask, how self-respect movement? This movement, which was originally aimed self-respect movement was originally aimed to empower the Dalits, the non-Brahmins, and the poor people. It was a movement against Brahmin supremacy. But in 1937, C. Rajagopalachari recommended C. Rajagopalachari in 1937 recommended a three-language formula. It must be noted that this is the first time that the three-language formula was introduced in the country. This is the origin of the three-language formula that is still in vogue, that is still making waves in the country. But the difference here was, why did they oppose it? Because this movement or this three-language formula, actually, it promoted Hindi as a connecting language. It promoted Hindi as the connecting language in the country. It was not liked by the leaders of the self-respect movement, and they opposed it. And this also sowed the seeds of the historic opposition of Hindi by the by the Tamil Nadu government, and that time the Tamil people. Now, you must think that since in pre-independence, regionalism had gained so much of weight and it had become such a prominent issue, which meant that the Indian national movement must have suffered because of it. Even the foreigner thinkers thought that the Indian national government, the Indian national movement is more like a regional, the independence of India is threatened by regionalism but this was not the case. They failed to understand actually that the Indian national movement had a national character to it. And what do you mean by the national character? In the words of Mahatma Gandhi himself, he said, as the basis of my identity as an Indian, I must take pride in myself as a Gujarati. Otherwise, we will be left without any morals. What he simply meant was that you can take utmost pride in being a Gujarati, a Marathi, a Telugu, a Tamil, an Arunachali, Punjabi, but without jeopardizing your identity as an Indian. You can be you can proudly belong to a region, but you can also be Indian. So the Indian national movement recognized both the identities. It recognized the regional identity. It also recognized the national identity without pitting them together. If you see for yourself, C. Rajagopalachari belonged to Madras. Subhash Chandra Bose belonged to Bengal. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel belonged to then Bombay Presidency. And Jawaharlal Nehru, he belonged to the United Province. They all belonged to different regions, but they were all fighting for a common cause, that was freedom from the British rule. Do you sense regionalism here? No. Regionalism had not gained that traction here. They were all fighting for a common cause. That is why the Indian national movement had a national character to it. Okay. Then what happened post-independence? Post-independence, everybody thought, the foreign experts, the philosophers, they thought that the unity of India is threatened by the rise of regionalism because of the diversity of the country. People speak different languages, they live in different regions, the climatic conditions are different. And so they thought maybe one day India is going to break. The first challenge that regionalism threw at the government was the demand for statehood. The Telugu speaking people expressed their dissatisfaction of being undervalued, of being misrepresented, underrepresented in Madras. They thought that their language is made subordinate to Tamil. They wanted to preserve their language like every other person, this is what the natural instinct is, to preserve your own culture, to preserve your own language. So they thought that we have to protect our language, we have to preserve our language before it is overtaken by Tamil. So they started their demand for a separate state. The lawmakers were reluctant. They didn't want to give in. They thought that this can break the country. the memories from the partition were still fresh. If they catered to their demands, the other parts of the country are going to demand for a separate state. Probably they want secession. They would demand for secession, as we had already seen after independence. What had happened? Jamnagar, Hyderabad. There were two big examples of how the government consolidated the states. So this was a major task. So government was reluctant to give them another state. But then a protester named Oti Sri Ramalu, he was fasting. He was fasting, and in that process of fasting and for the demand for a statehood, this man died. Now, when he died, the government came in action, and they were compelled to accept the recommendations of the Fazal Ali Committee. The Fazal Ali Committee had recommended, unlike the two previous committees, that linguistic reorganization of state is in benefit of the governance of the country. This is how Andhra Pradesh became the first state to be formed on the basis of language. It is the first linguistic state which was formed in the year 1955. The Reorganization of States Act was passed in 1956, and Andhra Pradesh was then followed by Gujarat in 1960. It was separated from the Bombay province. Then Punjab was divided into Punjabi speaking region, Hindi speaking region, which is Haryana, and the mountain area of Himachal Pradesh. Punjab was divided into Punjab, Hindi, Haryana, and Himachal. The Northeast Reorganization Act was passed in 1971. This way, the government was able to fulfill the aspirations of people. When it was able to fulfill the aspirations of people, the people felt content, and the issue of regionalism did not grow or did not become extreme. The government was successful. Another challenge was thrown at the government when it decided to choose Hindi as the official language. Please be cautious. Hindi is our official language and not our national language. Now, when we talk about Hindi, we have to talk about Tamil Nadu, the people from the Tamil area, Tamil speaking people. Hindi was again opposed by Madras that time. Tamil Nadu has a history of opposing Hindi. And this was another incident or another reason why it happened. After the 1937 three-language formula, this is where the opposition happened. In order to satisfy Tamil Nadu, English was incorporated as the other official language other than Hindi. Again, the people of Tamil Nadu were satisfied. They have, however, an additional information that the Tamil Nadu government has outrightly rejected the three-language formula, and it has often accused the central government of imposing Hindi. And it is not against the Hindi language, but against the dominance that it thinks that Hindi can have on non-Hindi speaking states. It is not about supremacy of language, but it is about subordination of one's language that they are fearing, that they fear. So, the Official Languages Act was also very amicably resolved by the government, and this was another success of success story of how regionalism did was the issue of regionalism was put under blanket by the government. Now, but in the previous examples, we saw how government was able to thwart the issue of regionalism for better good, for larger good. But imagine a scenario where regionalism, the issue of regionalism becomes so big that it results in terrorism. Why does this happen? And how can it happen? This can happen when federal relations are eroded. If the center fails to check the growth of regionalism and it does nothing, then it may result in terrorism. It may also give rise to communalism. But in general way, the federal principles, the center-state relations are such that the center caters to the state, and this way it keeps regionalism in check. Regionalism keeps communalism in check, and when these two work with the center and the state work together, and the federal principles are strengthened, it can counter terrorism also. As we saw in case of Khalistan. Khalistan is the biggest example. But how can the government maintain federal relations? As we have seen that the states are opposing the national education policy. The two states, the Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, have outrightly rejected the three-language formula. Tamil Nadu is the first state to adopt two-language formula. It has given primacy, or it has given primacy to English and Tamil over Hindi and any other language. Maharashtra government has again rejected, scrapped the three-language formula. Center should have done something, but how can the center keep these federal principles in place? How can it help prevent erosion of federalism in the country? It can do so through constructive dialogue. The center should sit with the state governments. The central government should sit with the state government. It should discuss the points. It should discuss the reasons of their refusal to implement the three-language formula or any other law for that matter. Constructive dialogue has always helped in strengthening the federal powers in the country, federalism in the country. Okay. Coming back to, before we come to National Education Policy 2020, let's first talk about the growing incidence of the local people attacking the outsiders for not speaking their language. What is happening in the country? Now we have been, see this. This is what is happening in the country. This is the latest news that is making headlines in the country. A shopkeeper who was unable to speak in Marathi was brutally thrashed by the MNS workers. There are many incidents that are happening in Bangalore, in Mumbai specifically. But why only Bangalore and Mumbai, and why not Lucknow, Patna, or any other region? Well, see, when a country undergoes economic development is accompanied by social changes, the changes in society, the changes in the social fabric of society. What is happening exactly is that there is a lower middle class and there is a middle class. This middle class is expanding. This middle class is continuously expanding, and it has absorbed a part of this lower middle class also. Now, this lower middle class, which is educated, this lower middle class, which had access to technology and technical expertise, they also have an aspirations. They are these people, these educated lower middle class. When outsiders see, when economic development happens, it is not, and the middle class is constantly expanding. These are two reasons. But then, what is there in between? There is no job creation, or there is job creation, but there are not many number of jobs. So, when outsiders come for a job, they are competing. This class is competing against this class. This class, the outsiders, may have better access to education. They have better access to technical expertise. They are probably more technologically advanced, or they have better technological education. Now this competition puts this class at a disadvantage, and it feels that they have taken their share. Now when you feel that, when one class feels discontent because this class has taken their, they feel that this class has taken their share, the growing discontentment is expressed or vented out in the form of frustration and anger. What they start doing is they start attacking. Few of the political powers, they also fuel regionalism, because regionalism gives political power. It is a source of political power. This is also the basis of the son of the soil doctrine, which was used by Balasaheb Thackeray in 1960s to eliminate Madrasis from Bombay. It said that, what does son of the soil theory says? It says that the state belongs to people who speaks its language. So, Maharashtra is for Marathis. Sorry. This is again this theory, the son of soil doctrine, is replicated by his own family today. And since we've talked a lot of negative points about regionalism, that how it may lead to communalism, how it may erode the federal powers, how it may give rise to terrorism and violence. But look here, the positive signs of regionalism. Two estranged cousins coming together for a common cause. As the Surf Excel ad says, Daag achhe hain. Regionalism is good. It's reconciling families today. Okay. Jokes apart, let's come back to National Education Policy 2020 and the issues that Maharashtra government is facing today. Now, the National Education Policy three-language formula. The three-language formula, as I've discussed before, is not new. It originated in 1937. It was reiterated again in 1968 by the Kothari Commission under the Prime Ministership of Indira Gandhi. The National Education Policy, the Kothari Commission's recommendation was a three-language formula. So the genesis of the three-language formula is the 1937 Rajagopal's recommendation and then the Kothari Commission's recommendation. This commission said that there should be three languages. Students should learn three languages at the primary level. But the Kothari Commission gave undue emphasis on Hindi. Now, whenever there is undue emphasis on Hindi, Tamil Nadu has to come in picture. Tamil Nadu opposed the imposition of Hindi. But unlike the 1968 Education Commission, the Kothari Commission's recommendation, the National Education Policy has given freedom of choice to the states, which means that the states are free to choose the languages. They can choose any three languages, but out of the three languages, two have to be native Indian language. This is what we are talking at the primary level. Primary is what? Class 1 to class 5. No problem. States have to choose. They can choose any language. They can choose Hindi. They can choose English. They can choose Telugu. They can choose Tamil, Kannada, Gujarati, Marathi. Whatever they want, they can choose. There are 28 languages to choose from. Then why is Maharashtra opposition against the three-language formula? This is because the Maharashtra government under the chief ministership of Devendra Fadnavis issued a circular in April 2025. It said two languages have to be mandatory, which is English and Marathi, but it chose Hindi as the third language. What does this mean? Choosing Hindi as the third language meant that Hindi in a discrete way or in an indirect way was made compulsory. It was made mandatory. The schools were mandated to implement Hindi as the third language. Of course, the son of the soil doctrine in Maharashtra is for Marathis. How can they teach Hindi? So, opposition. And as I said, regionalism is the source of political power. And if a state, if an establishment in a state can capture the spirit of people and it can take people with itself, leaving the government alone, it can be a very dreadful situation. So the government sprang in action, Devendra Fadnavis government sprang in action and it scrapped the three-language formula. They appointed a new committee under Mr. N. Jadhav to study the pros and cons of implementing Hindi. Decision will be there in times to come. But this is the sole reason And this is how regionalism plays an important role. You see that regionalism can cancel center's recommendation also, and the center has to oblige to keep the federal principles in place. Now we've come to the end of the discussion on regionalism, and I hope that this session helped. But before we conclude, see, when local people attack outsiders, that is, that people who do not speak their language, they are violating Article 19, the fundamental right of that person, and it must be prevented, it must be protected. The state, the center should definitely take cognizance of this issue. Article 19 gives freedom to any Indian citizen to live in any place they want to, in any part of the country. But but contrary to this, I just want to mention one thing, that when a person from Hindi speaking region comes to live in a city like Bangalore and Mumbai, they often need the services of the local people. When you need plumbing services, you need a delivery service, or you probably need to buy groceries at a local or mom and pop store, you would always need help of the local people. Now, the lower strata of the society of that city of or that particular language speaking person, rather that the lower strata of the society does not have access to English education at large. So when you don't know their language or you don't learn their language, you are closing the window of communication. You're closing that channel of communication. So obviously, when you close that channel of communication and when you refuse to learn their language, they feel kind of disoriented. They feel that you are an outsider. They are not ready to accept you wholeheartedly. And this has also caused regionalism to reach where it has reached today. So, but again, the responsibility of upkeeping the federal principles and harmony and economic stability and social stability in a country does not belong to the outsiders alone. The locals also have to understand that they have to behave civil, they have to behave in a dignified manner, they have to protect people and their own people and even the outsiders in their area from such harassment, violence. These are all very short term methods. They only disrupt this economic stability of a country. They halt the economic progress of a country. It is of no good use, especially given today when India is already fighting, when India is already in a very vulnerable position as far as its relations with the neighbors are concerned. I mean, look at China, look at Pakistan. They've come together against India. We are not on good terms with Bangladesh. So in a situation like this, when we are in a vulnerable situation, it becomes paramount for the Indian government, for the central government to keep to keep the internal forces at peace, to keep the internal, it's in, I don't know. So I hope that this helped, and happy learning.